Hey everyone, this is Alisha Costanzo and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. I am getting new subscribers, so hello! Thank you for watching my crazy ass. Today I'm going to talk about the books that I read in October. Before I get into, I'm going to do this a little differently, but before I get into that bit, I'm going to give you my stats. So I read 12 books. That was 3,743 pages. Because I read a lot of audiobooks, I read 3 days, 3 minutes, and 21 seconds worth of audiobooks. It was like 75 hours. Ridiculousness. But I did have two 20-hour books this month, so yes. I had 7 audiobooks total. 5 ebooks, no physical books. It tends to be a trend for me. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with physical books right now. I don't know. So, genres. I kind of split some of my genres a little bit more to be more specific. I read 2 YA epic fantasies. I read 4 YA fantasies with romantic elements as a main part of it. I also read 4 adult romances that were suspenseful, and 2 nonfiction books, 1 memoir and 1 marketing. A quick wrap up from my rolls. I read all but 1 of my Bookopoly rolls, so I read 9 out of 10 of them. The problem came in, so last video, the TBR video that I did for October, I was talking about the Cemetery Boys with Heather Brewer, and I should have been talking about Aiden Thompson, and I couldn't get access to his book, unfortunately. Was supposed to read The Bone Witch instead. Didn't happen. I don't know what's going on with my life, but I didn't finish my Opoly board because of that, and I didn't finish Hocus Pocus Readathon because of that, but I did get all the other prompts for the rest of them, and I missed 2 of my extra books, which was The Dark Tower by Stephen King and The Bone Witch, which really should have just been up, but anyways. Alright, so I thought I'd do this a little bit differently and talk about them within their categories and give you guys kind of a one-word description, maybe a little bit of extra beyond that, but I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. So, first I want to talk about my romances, because 3 of the 4 of them were Megan March. And she's become a new favorite author, so I read 3 of her books this month, and all of them were 4.5 to 5 stars. She is the cliffhanger queen. I will continue to call her that, because not even just the end of the books, but like the end of chapters. She has a great way of propelling you forward in the book and in the series until you get to the end. So she is definitely one of my new favorite authors. Let's first talk about Defiant Queen. My word or phrase would be Dance With Me in Dublin, which is probably one of the sweetest moments in the entire book. I loved it. I loved the part before it where he's kind of a badass. He's kidnapped her and whatnot, and to show her that he actually likes her, brings her to Dublin for something she really wants. And there's a moment where they're having a moment and he wishes that she'd kiss him on her own. And it was the cutest thing. It was right before the Dance With Me in Dublin, so like, loved them. And then that was the sequel, by the way, to Ruthless King. And then I also read Sinful Empire, which was the last one in that trilogy. And my wrap up for that, or my phrase for that, is holy shit twist. Did not expect that at the end. There was character like swapping almost. That death. And I'm a fan of death. So if you could fit that into a romance somehow, like, yes, please. Right, and then I started a new trilogy, the Forge trilogy, Deal with the Devil, and my word or phrase for this is the Kraken, because that is what she continuously calls his penis, and I think it is hilarious. The attitude between the 2 of them, the wit between the 2 of them, fantastic. So, and the last romantic suspense that I read was Whitney G's King of Lies. I really liked the first bit of it, not so much the last bit of it. I skimmed through the second half of the book because I gave it a 2. And the phrase I want to give to this is the worst date ever. Probably the best scene in the entire book was when she was on the worst date ever and the actual romantic interest comes in and saves the day, and the tension between them in that moment was brilliant. If the rest of the book had been written that way, I would have been on board for the whole book, but it fell off shortly thereafter. So, okay, so let's talk about the 2 YA epic fantasies that I read this much. I feel like I'm reading a lot more epic fantasy. I'm trying to figure out what I like and what I don't like on that. The first one was The Way of Shadows by Brent, and I gave this a 3. And my word or phrase for this is fuck, because the king trope. Okay, so I really hate the all-powerful asshole king trope in general, just to give a reason for tension or to have us hate the character. But this guy was so incompetent, and he would go on a tirade going fuck, 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 because he wasn't eloquent enough to actually like be mad and express that in a good way, even though he was king. I loved him as the king because there was a good reason to hate him, as well as to be like, well dude, you should not. Like, you're not even powerful enough to keep this shit in order. And then there was another part in it that I absolutely love that I can't tell because it's a spoiler, but he turned me around on the king trope. Like, when it's done in a specific way, apparently I do like it. So, my problem with it, which is just, it's one of my problems with epic fantasy in general, one of my problems with historical fiction, is there was too much world building that got in the way of the action. There's a way to weave that together better, and that's all, really. It's one of my major issues. And there was writing issues in it too. Like, it smelled of sweat and blood and hot sweat or cold sweat or something. It was like a double sweat, and I just didn't. There's a lot of repetitiveness that I didn't appreciate. And the other one was Nevernight by J. Kristoff, and my word or phrase for that is sarcasm or wit, because holy shit, Pale Daughter, which I know is not her real name, but I like to call her that because it's my favorite. She has a mouth on her, and I appreciate that. I also appreciated Trick too, in his mouth. That struck me as dirty there for a second. There was a bit of dirtiness in it between the two of them, so totally was on board for that. But it was smart. And although there were some repetitive words in this too, it wasn't quite as often, and it was more used for props in the story, which I don't think was necessarily needed at times, but I did understand the reason for it. So I also really liked the beginning, which was confusing at first because we're hopping back and forth between two scenes in which the phrasing is very similar, and so I'm like, is this skipping or something? Like, what's going on? But no, I appreciated it once I understood what was going on. I gave that a 4.5. By the way, I will be continuing that series. Absolutely, yes please. Alright, so let's talk about the YA regular fantasy romance stuff. The shit that I like from Holly Black kind of stuff, which one of them is Holly Black, of course, because I love Holly Black. How can you not love Holly Black? I'm sorry that this is overexposed, but you know, it's kind of pretty. The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black, and my word for that is secrets. Like, everything hinges on secrets, and if people could just be honest with each other, a whole lot of shit wouldn't have gone down, but that's how we work. We keep our secrets because we're so embarrassed by them, and then when they finally come out, it's like, why was I so upset about keeping this a secret? But it's part of that realism and that emotion that she works with so well. Hypes me up and makes me angry and all these other things. I don't think I actually hated anybody throughout this, which is interesting. Huh. I love Jack, by the way. I knew I would. Love Jack. Reminds me of Bowden. Okay, and then I gave that a 5, by the way, of course, because Holly Black, and I usually do. It's usually 4.5 or 5 for her, favorite author. Next one was The Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, and I gave this a 4.5. My word for that is art. I loved how focused her art was and how the Fae couldn't actually do like craft work. Even cooking, it would kill them. Loved a lot of the world building. Like, my only fault for this book was it wasn't long enough. I wanted more. I wanted so much more. But that's just because I loved the characters. Like, there wasn't anything really missing from the story. I just wanted to stay there longer. So my next one is The Star-Touched Queen by Roshani Chokshi. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, but I'm working on another one of her books this month. I'm super excited to get to it because I gave this one a 4-star, and the word for this was trust. So much of the relationship within the story was built on trust. The relationships between a lot of people in this book was built on trust, and I really loved the mythology. I haven't experienced this particular mythos, but I loved my introduction to it, and I feel like I would have gotten so much more if I knew the original one, but I didn't. Like, I don't feel like it took away from the story at the same time. Like, it was a great introduction to the story of the underworld and these two characters, and I'm sorry that I can't think of their actual mythological names, but yes. Good story. If you get a chance to read it, read it. My last YA fantasy, kind of romance, I've heard it described as romance. I didn't finish it. And it was Girls with Paper and Fire by Natasha Nin. And my word for this is rape. And not just like there was rape in it. Not just like we were thinking about the fact that the girl was going to be raped because it was very evident that this was going to happen. That's kind of the overall concept of the book. But it was how the society also reacted to the rape and how nobody fucking did anything. It was societal rape, like nobody could fucking with it. I had to put it down because there was nothing else to latch onto. There was nothing to give me a reprieve from the rape. So I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So, and of course I have a Frodo. He's got to be here anytime I record. I did not finish it. I won't finish it. I'm not interested. I wanted something more from it other than you just have to find a way to deal with it. Fuck you. How about prevent it? There are ways to do that, but you know. Anyways, I also read 2 nonfiction books. First was Betty White, and my word for this is grandma, because I felt like I was sitting there with my grandmother, hearing her tell me stories, and I was totally, it's Betty White. I love her. I think I gave this a 4. It was short, it was kind of discombobulated a little bit, but I feel like it would have meant more had I read any of her other previous books. So, and she read it herself, and I felt like I was just chatting with Betty White. Love that she loves animals as much as I do. Love that she has trouble saying no like I do. So, I love you, Betty White. And then the last one was, and I gave that a 4. The last one was Crushing It. Hi, Frodo. The last one was Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk. And I gave this a 4 as well. My word for this is convinced. I enjoyed it. I don't feel like I got as much out of it as I would have had I read his first book, Crush It. And so I'm gonna read his first book. That's how that's gonna work. Hi, Frodo. Okay, so there is my wrap up for October. Let me know if you like this new style of me wrapping up books or not. I feel like it's a little bit shorter, a little bit more concise, and I don't babble so much. And there's Pumpkin. Alright guys, I better go before the kitties attack. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Let me know what books you're reading. Bye!